Hey, deserving listeners, this is a trailer for a member-exclusive video in which I watch couples therapy. Let's watch.
Okay.
So that's good.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to let you go, and we will continue talking.
I just come here and realize how little you listen to anything that I say, and the fact that you feel like...
Okay. So he's still undifferent. He's still melting down a little bit, and he is doubling down even though the session is clearly over. What does that say? He wants the last word. He's hurt. He doesn't understand boundaries. He's self-centered, because most clients would feel bad about imposing on Orna in this way. Orna is saying, okay, it's time to wrap up. She's sitting up. That's another thing you kind of get used to as a therapist or as a client is there's different ways that the therapist will talk or sit when the session is wrapping up. I have a whole kind of thing that just naturally developed, and I also will use it sometimes to, like if I had someone like this, I would actually stand up right now. I would stand up to indicate we really do have to go, because often I do have a client that's right after. So I would stand up to indicate we're no longer in the therapy milieu. I'm not even sitting in my therapist chair. I'm signaling. I might even start walking I might go, oh, well, in fact, what I would do is I would stand up and I would say, hey, I hear you. Let's get to that later. And I really want to talk about that next time. So, but we really are out of time. I would value, but I would say we're at the end of our time.
I don't champion in your success.
We should go back to that. I have some thoughts on that.
Okay.
Perfect. Exactly. What I'm so curious about is, the camera must be behind that like felt. It must be like a see-through cloth or something. It's pretty impressive.
I want you to champion yourself. That's the
I
problem.
do champion myself. You just
like-
don't
I feel
hear me
like-
when
I
I
feel
say
like- I
my
feel like
priorities.
Nothing wrong with this. Of course. They were in the pinnacle of a fight, and just because the session is over doesn't end the fight. They're continuing to fight, and it's bleeding out into the waiting room. Yeah. I've had clients who I can hear, they park, and then I hear them coming up the walkway, and they're already screaming at just yelling at each other. And since I've often at a home office, I would have to tell clients, look, it's great that you're bringing material in, but I have neighbors and I don't want to concern you. So, in the car, fine. Out from the car to my office, let's keep it decibel wise at a certain level. As soon as you're in my office, have at it.
I don't think that you think.
Please remember this. We should go back to that.
So Orna, again, great. She recognizes that to just say bye would seem dismissive or invalidating or something. And so Orna's like, yeah, next time I want to talk about that. So, really good move on her part. Because it would be tempting to get frustrated and to just be thinking in your head, just like, get the fuck out of my office or shut up or, of course, you wouldn't act on those feelings, but it wouldn't be unusual to have that kind of thought. Or at the very least, feeling like, hey, we wrapped up the session, certainly you can talk later, but on the way out. But another thing that you would think of if you're in Orna's position is they're not just fighting amongst themselves, they're fighting in front of me. That's always the thing to remember in a lot of contexts, but particularly in couple therapy, that they're not just talking to each other. I am part of the issues, particularly if I have joined the system and I play a role in this. I'm kind of like a parent to them. I'm not their parent, but because I'm not triggered and I'm not involving my needs, it has that feel to it, right? That's what parents do in a simplistic way, is they don't confide in their children. They don't ask their children for emotional healing or anything. The healing and the care and the attention is unidirectional. Not always, of course. That's not even functional, but it can. Anyway, so they're not performing, but they're wondering how I would feel about this. And I'm in the room. So that's good that she said something of just like, I hear you, and you can hear it in her voice, or her tone of voice values the situation and says, we'll definitely talk about that next time.
Have a good one. Thank you. I just don't feel like
Your feelings don't have shit to do with facts. That's the problem. You go with your feelings, and your feelings are...
Okay, they're continuing to fight. Now, this is not, I'm guessing, her real office, because this is probably in a studio somewhere, like a warehouse. The sun coming in through the windows is probably just fake light, because they have to have all this equipment and monitors and whatnot. So it's not a real lobby. But if it were a real lobby, that's good. Another reason why I'm hoping it's not a real lobby is because that door between the office and the waiting room is wafer thin. In fact, it doesn't even really close. It's just a pocket door, right? Which means, because whenever you have a pocket door, there's a lot of air gaps around it. So that's where you can hear things. But they're fighting in the lobby, and they're not leaving. They could easily just walk out the final door, right?
Wrong. A lot of the time.
Okay, I don't know if previous seasons were like this, but I think the show is either capturing and or trying to portray a narrative that Orna is a character now, that her issues, I mean, she's always been involved because she, pretty heavily, in those consultation meetings, but at the very least, they seem to be trying to portray her stress, maybe, I don't know. And then, because we saw that teaser at the very beginning of the episode 10 in which she's like, I'm not the right therapist for you. So building up to that moment, it's sort of like with White Lotus, that show, where they have a dead body in the beginning, and then the rest of the season is figuring out how or who died or something. So we're trying to figure out what broke Orna. All right, well, that does it for the end of the trailer portion, the free portion of the video. If you want to see the full video, become a member by clicking the join button or clicking on the link in the description. And everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.